Rachel and I kind of got together with this project. I think I first thought about it about, I want to say it was probably about 2 years ago. It was basically whenever there was a big boom with the AI world, and all of a sudden it was there. Like one day it wasn't, the next day it was. And honestly, I myself, and I consider myself pretty good with technology and staying on top of digital literacy and all of the things. I felt like I was completely behind because it was moving so fast and everybody around me was on it and I wasn't. And when I went to the Ideal Institute that year, I noticed other states had a plan or at least talking about it, and we weren't. I didn't feel like we were talking about it at all. So and I was worried, to be honest, because I could just remember my teachers that worked with me when I was at a program and how already it was so stressful for them, just technology in general. And now we have this AI thing. And the thing is, even if they don't know about it or they don't want to use it or any of that, the students might be right. And so it was going to create a lot of things. So we really invested it because we wanted to take so many of them, I know, and continue to be, as I come across teachers, they're on that curious side, and so this kind of we wanted an opportunity for them to experiment with it, build their confidence enough so that we could take that to the classroom so they could integrate it into their classroom. So essentially what we were doing was trying to move teachers from that curiosity and concern state to becoming confident classroom use. And so I went to the great Rachel Riggs and Jeff Gumas and asked them their thoughts on us doing a project together to help offer our teachers something that they could do in Texas so that we could at least get started in the AI world, no matter what that might look like. And with that, we got together.
Yes. And we were, when Ashley and I first started talking about how to address the need in Texas, simultaneously at World Ed, we were seeing in the ed tech market a lot of new tools coming onto the scene. And then some confusion around what to do with existing resources, right? So we were really thinking about how do we equip teachers to navigate all of these new tools, but still use the resources that they have available to them. And another thing we were really concerned with was, teachers ending up in a silo of using AI to generate their classroom resources. Um, and just kind of the isolation that that might lead to, but also potential waste of teachers' time and skills, crucially, and even AI waste. So we embarked with Ashley and her team on designing a training that we thought could meet all of these multifaceted needs around equipping and empowering teachers to use generative AI. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we designed the professional development that we did with Texas, and then I'll also share some things that we learned along the way and share about what we actually delivered in the training itself. Our design approach, at World Ed, we design a lot of teacher professional development, and it's always anchored in what we know about quality teacher professional development, as well as what we know about technology integration that is fruitful and puts learning first. And so we started, of course, always with that in mind, not thinking too much about the tools or even the technology itself, but really thinking about what do we know about how to design professional development that's really effective and how to integrate technology in a way that promotes learning outcomes. And then we drew on some of our existing models. So we have two trainings that we were already running. One is the EdTech Makerspace, and we've been doing EdTech Makerspaces for years. And in that professional development, we train teachers to use educational technology to create high quality, reusable open education resources. And so it's really an applied use of things like Google Forms, Kahoot, what have you, for the purpose of a having a more robust ecosystem of materials that they can draw from and even share with their colleagues. And then we also had a training going for some years that was called Camp GPT. And in Camp GPT, we were training teachers, giving them kind of some foundational AI literacy through very hands-on and experiential learning with generative AI tools. And then we wrapped all of that in a co-design process with Ashley and her team to really think about how we can take what we're already doing, take what we know about quality teacher PD, and contextualize it and make it super relevant to what teachers in Texas are experiencing and what resources they already have access to, et cetera. So the process started with that co-design process. We were working with TCAL to design the training, and that really helped us. We were thinking about how do we balance the structure. We have Camp GPT on one side that's very exploratory and open-ended, and we have the EdTech Makerspace on the other side that is very structured, where teachers actually develop a library of open educational resources. So we consulted with them to really think through what would be the right balance between structure and exploration for the needs that they were trying to address. And then we were also thinking about how do we really align this with the existing resources in Texas? So we know that different states have different approved digital tools. Different states have different standards for adult education and workforce development. And so it was a priority for us to think about developing a training that would be very specific to the adult educators in Texas. So then we ran the training. And so that took place from March to April of 2025, a year ago. I can't even believe that. It feels like yesterday. We did 4 synchronous sessions. We did asynchronous work and exit tickets in between. And of course, just facilitating those and offering feedback as we went along. And then last summer, we analyzed the data that we gathered from the training to do a program evaluation and also conduct a qualitative case study to examine what the teachers' perceptions were, their expressed intentions with generative AI, and their engagement in the training itself. And then last fall, we went back to 3 of the highly engaged participants, who we call the showcasers because they showcased their work at a state conference. So we went back to them 6 months later and did interviews to better understand how their actual use of generative AI tools had unfolded over time. And so now I'm going to just talk a little bit about what we covered in the training and then what we found in that data analysis. The first session was focused on just the basics of generative AI. So we did a little bit of under the hood AI background, how AI works. And then we talked about the different general purpose chatbots that exist and prompting strategies for using chatbots. So this is the prompt formula that we used. And again, all of this was very tool agnostic, so they could make choices about which tools they wanted to use in the training. In the second session, we introduced some of the more specialized out-of-the-box teaching tools like Magic School, Brisk, Diffit, Conmigo. You've probably heard of these different tools. And so we went kind of a little closer to the tools that have been designed for teachers. And we looked at them through an AI integration framework. So really thinking about how we integrate AI that is learning first, that's in a way that's ethical, in a way that is really useful and impactful and human-centered. In session 3, we were focused on taking it to the classroom. So we talked about how do we evaluate AI outputs using what we already know about evaluating educational resources, and how do we take the things that a chatbot might give us and turn them into accessible, user-friendly activities for our learners. So using some of those more traditional ed tech tools to take it to the classroom. In session 4, we did a showcase. So they showcased their work and did a little show and tell and reflected on when do I AI. So we created this flow chart here to support teachers in thinking through, what do you need that AI can really help you with? what are the resources that you already have that you can draw on so that AI is really augmenting what you're doing? And what would be the prompt approach that you might want to use if you are using something like a general purpose chatbot in order to get what you need out of it? And then finally, how do you evaluate it? What are some things to check for when you get the output? So after those 4 sessions, we analyzed the data, and so we were here doing a program evaluation of the training itself to see how we can improve it in future iterations, and then also doing a qualitative case study to dive deeper into teachers' expressed perceptions and intentions as they were moving from tinkering with AI tools to really integrating them and using them to create classroom materials. We triangulated our findings using different data sources. So we had pre and post surveys, we had their workbooks and exit tickets, the session transcripts from the live sessions themselves, and then a participant tracker where we were keeping track of things like attendance and assignment completion. And we had 18 educators in the training, and it was a good cross section of the Texas adult education and literacy system. So we had people from community colleges, public libraries, people in different roles like instructors or PD specialists, and covering different subjects like ESOL, GED, etc. And ultimately, we were interested in 3 questions. How do they perceive and use the tools? What did their engagement in the training reveal to us? And how might we improve the training for the future? So I'm going to cover that first one here in terms of what we learned from the program evaluation. Some of the general favorable impressions were that the teachers expressed an intention to increase their use of generative AI. And even some of them mentioned increasing their use of open educational resources that we had introduced in the training. There was a strong sense of agreement with the topics that we had covered in the training. So those were the basics, different tools and use cases, AI ethics, as well as what we're calling interaction skills or the prompting and evaluating of AI chatbot interactions. And finally, we did see that those who participated all the way through had increased confidence in their ability to use generative AI, which, like Ashley mentioned earlier, was one of the aims of doing the training to move them from that curiosity and concern to confidence in how they can approach AI use. Of course, there were some changes that we needed, and Ashley's going to close by telling you guys what the training looks like now. We're running the second cohort right now based on the formative feedback that we received. But I do want to kind of share with you some of the interesting perceptions and intentions that we observed through the training. So we used something called the technology acceptance model, and we aligned what teachers told us from the training sessions, surveys, and exit tickets to the constructs of that model. So starting with some external variables, they talked a lot about what kinds of institutional support they might need, including needing time to really tinker and experiment with generative AI tools, needing paid licenses. So they saw some of the real glaring limitations of free licenses or free trial periods with the different tools to generate quality learning resources. And they expressed a need for training and an appreciation for the training. There were some ethical concerns that came up quite a bit, like privacy concerns, concerns about bias and AI outputs, and then concerns about academic integrity. Where is this information coming from? Who really owns it, etc. And then finally, peer collaboration really emerged as a really important factor in their acceptance of generative AI. So they really appreciated the ability to experiment with the tools and tinker, but then also to do that in an environment where they could collaborate and share with their peers. Within that, we saw that they felt that it was easy to use, right? It was fast, it was intuitive, but they definitely talked a lot about it being a starting point, about having to edit the outputs, it being an iterative process. They saw that it was really useful for differentiation. and as a cognitive partner. So they kind of getting them started on a task or even just getting ideas for how to approach something. Were some of the ways that they were using it. And then they talked about their intentions to really integrate it into their curriculum, intentions to continue to use it mindfully, and to use it to differentiate for learner variability. So we didn't gather much about actual use during the training, but we did go back 6 months later to interview those three showcasers, like I said, and kind of try to understand how they were using generative AI. And that surfaced some interesting insights for us. So one of the showcasers, this is a pseudonym, right, was Trevor. And I call him the learner-centered synthesizer. So he was drawing on a whole lot of different tools in like a patchwork quilt mosaic of AI integration in order to really get to what adult learners would need. So this is a quote from him. He said, "I need resources with simple language, but targeted for adult audiences." And that is something that's not out there a lot for adult education for ESL. So Trevor was mixing and matching generative AI tools and uses to meet the needs of diverse learners in multi-level classes. And he was really carefully considering what's meaningful and relevant for adults. So he specifically mentioned turning away from some of the out-of-the-box teaching tools like Magic School and Brisk because he felt that it took too much wrangling to get them to be suitable for the learners that he was working with because they were so geared toward a K-12 or higher education audience, and they were really set up for that. So he ended up using chatbots and he was reusing some of his prompts to really kind of add some efficiency to his use of these different tools. And then there's Nora, and Nora, we call the collaborative creator. So Nora was really focused on community, talked a lot about her team, the teachers that she works with, even talked a lot about the cohort that she went through the training with and how helpful it was to see other people's work. And so what Nora did after the training is she started creating lessons for the whole team to draw from. So she set up this organized library in SharePoint so that other teachers could go and retrieve the things that she had generated using AI. So this is her quote here. "Overall, we use it for creating the material that supports the teachers. And we're available for any teachers that want to learn." So she was really motivated by collaborating and hearing from others, and then developed those organized repositories of lesson resources for other teachers. And then finally, we have Ben. And Ben is what I call the skeptical problem solver. So Ben really came into the training very skeptical and reported a lot of anxiety around AI. And he said that after the training, it did reduce his anxiety just to kind of know a little bit more about it and the different tools and how they're being used. And when we went back 6 months later, he said, he really wasn't using it a lot, maybe monthly, but there have been times that it's really helped him solve very complex problems. So that's an example here where he said, "I went to Gemini and said, okay, I know nothing about this. It didn't solve my problem, but it did start me on the journey when I had nowhere to start." So again, experimenting with AI seemed to reduce his anxiety and validated his concerns about reliability and ethics. So he appreciated that we talked about ethics in the training and that we introduced a lot of different tools rather than kind of skimming over it because he felt validated by that. And then he went on to use it just occasionally for research or to create presentations. So you guys, I invite you to read the full report. I think Ebony is going to put the link in the chat for you. So we have the report on the training we did with Texas. We also have the course itself that will be made available to IDEAL member states along with a facilitation guide so that you guys can replicate the training in your states. And we have a paper coming out in New Horizons on specifically the use for adult ESOL. All right, I'm going to hand it back to Ashley to close us out here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so what we learned after the first cohort is that teachers were very curious and they were interested in exploring generative AI. So I feel like it kind of was like for especially for some teachers because it was just so much in the beginning and such an unknown is I think is the big thing. And so there was a lot of fear there. I think now compared to then, let's just say in the last year and just talking to teachers now, it is different, but it's still the same. Like you still have some people that are like, mm-mm, no, no, no. And you have some people that are still very, very curious. So there is a lot, and I do get it. I understand where they're coming from, but unfortunately, it's not going away, and it's a disservice to our students if we are not embracing it and at least knowing about it and knowing how to use it safely and ethically. So I think that's just really, really key to a lot of things, especially when I'm in a room full of 75 people and only, 5 to 10 are actually still telling me they haven't even touched it. So it has been really interesting. So the curiosity aspect was definitely there. Caution, I think it was amazing because they asked questions about ethics, accuracy, and student use. So that helped them to not only use AI, but also use it in a way that was going to be safe for them, but also safe for their students so that they can actually share that information with their students, which is ultimately our goal. And then practical need. There was more interest in real classroom applications, and I don't, a lot of times people just think there's only one way to do things. That goes with technology too, but this was a really good opportunity for them to see all the different ways. I mean, come on, lesson plans, hello. It's a beautiful thing what AI can do for us and save us so much time. So ultimately, what we learned was helping adult educators move from AI curiosity to confident instructional use. So we were happy with that result. Go ahead. Where we're headed now. So we have developed a brand new cohort. We've never done it this way before. It's been pretty exciting to see and watch, and the interest has all been very interesting to me. So what we've done is Jeff and Rachel have put together this cohort, but we wanted to do it differently than we did it before. We wanted there to be more options for our teachers because some of them have no skills, some of them have some skills, some of them have a lot of skills, some of them just want to do it all. So we did an ACE, so we did what we're calling a hybrid course. So it was asynchronous plus a learning lab. And so we did it in like a choose your adventure format, meaning they could choose which course they wanted to do. They could do all three if they wanted to, but they could choose the course. They do the course asynchronously. I was told just the other day it's about a 2 hour course. I believe that's what they told me anyhow. And then at the end, they have the opportunity to do a learning lab and share their learning, ask questions, collaborate, those sort of things. And that's an actual in-person session. Our plan is once this cohort is done, which is coming up already, it moved very quickly. We plan to continue offering it throughout the year. So our next steps with Jeff and Rachel is that we're going to do like a TOT so that we can get some trainers who can assist. Because my goal is, as the director, my goal is to offer this at least 4 times a year, at least the first year, because it's like a 5 week option, but I think it's something that just needs to continue to exist. And we don't always have all the time in the world to be the trainers ourselves. So we're going to go ahead and get some of our teachers trained, some of our trainers trained, I guess, on this for this format. It is a completely different format. It has been definitely a pilot situation, I think. So no one has ever done that at T-Call anyway. And so it's been interesting, and we had a big number of people sign up for it. Well, big compared to what I was expecting. There were 75 registered for the asynchronous. I think that aspect really helps it. It gives people more opportunity. And like if it was me, because I prefer asynchronous learning, I'm one of those strange learners, but I prefer to learn by myself. And so, I mean, I would be all over all three of them, like immediately. But for those people like I don't remember which name you said earlier, Rachel, but the one who embraced the others, uh, it's a great opportunity for people to really collaborate and learn. And so, anyway, overall, though, you're really messing with me right now, aren't you? I think Rachel's trying to challenge me by messing with the screen. um, but basically, we're basically going to be here to help educators move from curiosity to confidential use. And we're hoping to continue the interest and the best practices in AI use. And, we'll probably have to keep updating it as it continues to grow, which is happening so fast.